Thanks so much. Welcome, everyone. The design here is to be an interactive session. I do have a little video to kick off the discussion, but you could say that I've been very fascinated with the mixed reality space for a long time. I've been following it since the early headsets, and with what Microsoft's been doing and what's been happening in this whole space. And absolutely, feel free to come on camera. I'd love to be able to kind of get to know who's here in the room. This is going to be, I think it should be a fairly interactive discussion, especially if we can get people to participate. But like I said, I'm going to start off with a video, but before I do, I want to introduce myself for those who don't know me. My name is Joel Olson. I'm a Microsoft MVP and RD. I've been working in the Microsoft space for about, 20, I'm going to say 20 years, but it's been more than that. And I currently work for Sony as a contractor, and there's some things going on behind the scenes where I'm going to be going actually more and more. Like I have been kind of splitting my time, and it looks like I'll be spending more time there. This is with the PlayStation Group. Anyway, I also work for Cyclotron, a consulting company. And yeah, I love the comment that John's making about bringing the Quest 2. I was actually debating too, like, should we just have put a URL here and say, hey, meet me in the metaverse, and whether we choose alt space or whatever. This is a Teams event, so I'm okay leaving it in Teams and talking about where this is going with Teams. But anyway, I appreciate being able to have these conversations, especially hoping the next one will be able to be on in the metaverse for sure, or at least Teams for Mesh at a minimum. So as I said, I want to start with a video. Let me share my screen and audio. And so just give me a moment to pull that up. Include computer sound is the one I was looking for. Come on. All right. Let's go screen. All right. And you should see my screen in just a second. Sorry for the delay, slow computer. This should all be queued up.
As the digital and physical worlds come together, we are creating an entirely new platform layer, which is the Metaverse. In a sense, the Metaverse enables us to embed computing into the real world and to embed the real world into computing, bringing real presence to any digital space. What's most important is that we are able to bring our humanity with us and choose how we want to experience this world and who we want to interact with. It's no longer just looking at a camera view of a factory floor. You can be on the floor. It's no longer just video conferencing with colleagues. You can be with them in the same room. Mesh for Microsoft Teams will allow you to connect with presence and have a shared immersive experience directly in Teams.
We've also created an incredible immersive space that's now seamlessly accessible directly through Teams. Why don't we go check it out?
Here we are, Jason, and your avatar looks awesome. Something that
So I want to just pause the this video for just a second because I wanted to call out the UI. If you've been wondering what Mesh for Teams is going to look like, you actually saw a sneak peek there. I'm going to actually just back this up 1 second. Notice basically there's a little menu here in the UI where you've got your gallery view, the large gallery together mode, and then you've got this new thing called immersive experience. So without showing something that hasn't been shown, this is a public video, we're actually seeing what Mesh for Teams looks like. It really is just simply adding that immersive experience capability on. So again, not trying to show you something that's NDA, but I thought that it was kind of cool to see that in this particular demo from Accenture, that they actually did show in the UI how this kind of plays out. And I'll continue with the video.
Here we are, Jason, and your avatar looks awesome. Something that I really like is how freely you can move around and have face-to-face conversations.
That's exactly right. We've held more than 100 team gatherings in these immersive spaces where people can connect, learn, and collaborate because they're truly in the same place together.
The solution has been a game changer for onboarding about 100,000 people a year. And like many organizations, onboarding has been remote for the past 18 months. So bringing our new hires into this immersive environment fosters immediate and deeper connections. It transcends physical boundaries and helps individuals experience a culture in a very personal way. Our new hires meet many more people and grow their professional network much faster.
In IT, we're thrilled how easily we could unlock Mesh's capabilities through Teams. The integration with Microsoft 365 makes everything feel familiar. But on top of that, spatial audio makes everything sound just like it would in person. And I love seeing and hearing our colleagues collaborating and whiteboarding and using this space for productivity.
This doesn't just feel real. The idea become a reality in such a short time, enabling presence and connection that transcends location, keeps our culture vibrant wherever we're working, and levels the playing field to create equal and inclusive experiences.
The metaverse is not just transforming how we see the world, it's changing how all of us actively participate in it. And we can't wait to see what you build and how you bring people together with this technology.
All right, so I actually want to start with where Satya just ended, where he was saying, I can't wait to see what you will build. And I kind of want to start with that we saw a little bit of what Accenture was doing, where they actually distributed 60,000 headsets at Accenture. And essentially, you got to kind of see this idea that there's this sense of presence, a place where the Accenture employees can go for new hire onboarding, for meetings, for collaboration. They're part of this private preview, you could say, being able to use Mesh for Teams. But I want to just kind of open this up for discussion, and then we can kind of bounce in and out of some visuals. But just want to kind of start with where are your companies at in terms of adoption of, is there a vision for the metaverse? Is there a vision for what you want to be able to do with mixed reality inside your organization? And I'm going to stop and have people come on and feel free to share. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And feel free to come on camera, and what we'll do is we'll just go into one of these gallery views so that we can just chat. And let's do hands, I guess, if people are kind of shy. So go ahead and feel free to raise your hand if you have anything to say. And if you don't, that's okay too.
I'll start. I'll break
Please,
the
thanks,
ice.
Joe.
So everybody else get pumped up. So I work at Cerner for 2 more days. Then I'm moving on to EY next week. And at Cerner, we've done a little bit. So we haven't invested in VR headsets and things like that to a broad extent. I think there might be some like UX designers who have purchased like, corporate headsets. But we have had, as an IT professional, I've had some groups come to me looking for things like AltSpace, or the other one that they looked at was GatherTown, where it was like a top-down view, the idea of like, this spatial audio coming together and physically being close to each other inside of this digital world. And it's mostly from like these culture groups, like our engineering culture, our consulting culture. So not necessarily in the context of like onboarding or doing work on a project. It's more like corporate culture, socialization, or maybe like a town hall expo is kind of where we are as a corporation right now. People are kind of dabbling with it, but in like a flat screen type of a plane.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from Van. He posted in the chat that he was one of the new hires. I think we got to hear. We got to hear.
Hi, everybody. This is Charles Van Heusen. I'm new to Accenture. I'm on. Yesterday was actually my 6-month anniversary here, and I joined at the right time, man. I didn't know anything about coming into the Metaverse with Accenture and what they were doing until I was going through onboarding, and they said, "Hey, day 4, you need to load AltSpace." I was like, "AltSpace, sweet." And I've been toying with the idea of getting a headset, and went out and bought one and set it up and went through that experience, only to find out, hey, look, thanks for joining this new VR game changer space. Here's your headset we're shipping you. So my son was happy to have one to play with me with us at the same time. And it's been it really has been a game changer for our environment, because we're dealing with people with all walks of life in all parts of the world. You have 647,000 employees here now at Accenture, and different cultures have different experiences. And when you go into this virtual world, you can create your avatar to really express who you are in your individualism, and show that diversity that's there. And it's been wonderful. We use them for happy hour meetings. So we have a virtual happy hour once a month, and go in the AltSpace and do things. We're shooting hoops, playing games and stuff like that out there. We've got poker rooms set up where some of the guys and gals on the Game Changers get out there, and we have a poker night out on PokerStars where we set up our own rooms, and it drives a whole new level of collaboration that we wouldn't have had in this post-COVID world, because we're not getting to the office anymore. We've got to go through specific protocols to get in there to have COVID tests and things like that, and this breaks down all those barriers that were creating that isolationism that we had before in the last 2020-21 experience. And we're helping shape the Metaverse, and they're encouraging it. Even though it's not your day job, it's not my day job to be part of that. It's something I'm excited about, just like you guys are participating in this conference. It's not your day job to do these things, but you want to be the ones out there leading and helping drive that change. And it's really been an empowering experience so far.
It's interesting, Charles, that you mentioned AltSpace. The Microsoft Metaverse, or the Microsoft vision of the Metaverse, it seems like right now it's kind of taking 3 forms. You've got straight up Mesh, which Mesh itself is an app on HoloLens 2, and in that there is you can actually build your own apps in HoloLens using their mixed reality Dev SDK, essentially being able to build your own experiences. Then you've got AltSpace VR, which was an acquisition a number of years ago. Apparently, it was right before they were going to turn it off, which was surprising to me. But now it's one of the top chat in the space. And I think this kind of points to the question that is here in the chat that Ian was asking. Will everyone have to be in the virtual world, or are hybrid meetings possible? Even in AltSpace, you don't have to have a headset. You can do it with a Mac or a PC. I don't know if they've got mobile on AltSpace, but definitely as Microsoft thinks about mixed reality, mobile plays into it as well. In fact, I was noticing with the new iPhones, and I'm sure Android's got it too, you can actually scan in 3D. Like there's a built-in 3D camera in your camera. Yeah, and Ryan says they use demo.
And that's to your point, is, you know, that there's a cost associated with making that jump, right? So buying 6,000 headsets, 60,000 headsets isn't for every company that's out there. And when we're working in solutions today, you know, with our customers, you'll see stuff in here, be hearing stuff about digital twin and Industry X out there. There's a lot of new terms coming out on how we're really blending the mixed reality, the AR and VR worlds all together. We're using our phones and the cameras to actually give that experience. Not everybody's going to go out and buy a RealWear headset to do that, because again, it's a cost of entry, but you can actually do a lot of that training and those new experiences to introduce people to this mixed world by leveraging the technology that they already have. And it's a great stepping stone. I put a link out there to an article that was just recently posted about Meet Me in the Metaverse that Accenture posted. It's really it's that next. I consider this, you know, Internet 3.0 is where we're headed. It's the Internet Industrial Revolution that we're starting around the world.
Yeah, and I like what John was pointing to, is like AltSpace. It has been adding enterprise capability, but fairly slowly. At this point, it's you can link your Microsoft consumer account. You're essentially, you can link your Microsoft account, but they haven't fully added all the enterprise capability. You can't just add it into your tenant. Although it does seem like some of those capabilities are in preview as well. So I don't know if that's what Accenture had done, or if you know much about or can talk about the authentication space, and because privacy and security is definitely paramount in this space.
Yeah, Accenture is definitely, you know, a security focused, security first type of environment, as you can imagine, with the customers that we support around the world. And so that is definitely something that we're always evaluating and looking through there. And, you know, and we're working, you know, you've got work with Meta, you've got work with Microsoft, you've got work with AltSpace. So we're going to continue to see these things change. And I'm sure the next version of these products will be coming out soon that are going to be enterprise focused.
Is that another hand? Somebody's raising a hand. I can't tell who it is. Okay. Feel free to chime in if you're raising your hand.
I don't personally see my company jumping on this.
David, yeah.
Exciting bandwagon just at the moment. But do you think it's, if I was to get involved with this on a personal level, is it too soon to start committing to a headset already?
Not at all. I think the headset experience versus using the keyboard and mouse is completely different. It's that you need to understand the immersive experience of it, and also understand what are the pitfalls of it. I've been deep sea fishing and everything else, and never got motion sickness. 10 minutes into a headset, and I was on the floor the first time I sat down and tried to walk through a room. And so learning how to tune that and manage that process is important. So when we host our weekly meetings, you know, and we're doing some of our training for new people, we drilled in a break every 20 minutes. Say, hey, take your headset off, walk around, get a drink of water, come back. That way we can help you minimize that poor experience, because we want it to be a great experience for people to learn and want to adapt. If it's bad from the beginning, they're going to push back on it.
So I don't know who went to, I forget if it was the last Ignite or the Ignite before, where the keynote itself was in AltSpace, and they turned on a bunch of capabilities they've been working on, a lot of 3D video, very immersive, mixed reality type content in the keynote itself. And being able to, since they really kind of helped bring as many people into that space as possible, and then you went into the expo hall, it was kind of cool to be able to see people from all over the world. And the way that they do the spatial audio was really quite amazing. Being able to stand and you're face to face, just chatting in a little circle with a group of people, that immersive experience of feeling like you're standing right next to somebody who's in Germany or in Japan, it really is it's quite amazing. When COVID hit, I really got into mixed reality. I was like, all right, I'm going to use this to kind of bridge the boundaries and to get the social that I've been lacking when we were all told to stay at home. I was really embracing it, and anyway, spending a lot of time there, and I did feel like that immersive experience was really something that made a big difference. Like it truly does feel like you're in a conference room, or like you're with those people.
Yeah, we've expanded beyond that into just taking it from the business perspective. It's all about the mental health side of it too. So we've actually invested as for the part of the group is subscriptions into Supernatural, and giving everybody a trial of that to go through that experience, and building workout programs and challenges at work, where we have 15-20 minutes of mindfulness during the day, where they can actually go through in a class and achieve different challenges, and there's different internal rewards and processes that get used for that when they compete against one another. So it's more than just another meeting platform.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
cool.
say I was pretty skeptical or pretty resistant to getting a headset and getting into alt space and things like that. Last year, I made fun of the Ignite experience a whole lot, but I will say, if you make the investment in a headset, it is much better and much more immersive, in my opinion, to use something like alt space using a headset, being able to use your hands more naturally, things like that. It did convert me pretty well over the summer to where I'm pretty in on the VR idea. I kind of feel like it's not super comfortable. I feel like we're in the era today of like car phones, where it's like there's this amazing technology, but there's only like a few total nerds who are like talking about how like car phones were revolutionary and you can talk to anybody while you're driving. I feel like that's where we are with VR. It's like, it's amazing, and trust me and Joel, because we've experienced it. But at the end of the day, it's like a hot brick on your face, and it's not super comfortable for like 6+ hours. There's accessories that I've added to make it better. So I feel like we're on the early side of things, and it's going to get better. I'm mostly looking forward to who's going to make it to market first. Is it going to be Meta, or is it going to be Apple with like glasses that are like these, but provide those, full augmented reality, or even like go fully VR, but not look like a total dork? I feel like we're on the cusp of that, but maybe a couple years out. And right now it's like, it's kind of a niche, but it is really cool if you do dive in, and it's fairly cheap,
So is it the bag phone level or the flip phone level is what I want to understand in your mind?
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
feel like we're kind of like somewhere in between there. Like it's cool enough that we can show people, but I think in the next 5 years we're going to look back like we look today at your Moto Razr phone pictures that you took, and you're like, holy cow, those are terrible compared to my iPhone. I feel like we're going to look back and be like, man, that Quest 2 was dorky, But
Yeah.
I think now it is amazing if you try it. So
I don't know if you guys have seen, there is some Ray-Bans that was
yeah.
a partnership with Meta, and I've heard some feedback that it hasn't nailed it yet, but I think that it's going to be incremental. I think that this Facebook, not Facebook, sorry, if the Mesh for Teams stuff, where it's like Teams is already popular, this is where the audience is. If we then add avatars, and then those avatars can then be immersive, you've got those who can be in the metaverse, those who actually have their headsets on, but it doesn't necessarily end the meeting for everybody else. I think that that ability to kind of merge these worlds and kind of truly make a mixed reality experience, where those who are looking for full headset VR experience, and then those who are simply in the meeting they walk into the conference room and it's their face. I think that we're going to see those worlds come together with Teams, and I like the idea of Teams being the place where the rubber meets the road, of bringing and bridging those worlds together and kind of introducing people to, hey, it's actually okay to turn off your camera or to put on an avatar and have a likeness to reduce the video fatigue, as an example. It's like, I wonder how many people, we've got 50 plus people in the room, but a handful of people who are willing to sit with their cameras on. But if we could have avatars, would it be 50% or 75% who would be willing to do it without having to show the mug, you know? Hey, did I actually do my hair and makeup and so on?
Well, yeah, it's a different feel between what you do between meetings like this where along our colleagues versus meetings amongst customers. I'm not going to show up to a meeting on camera in a t-shirt, but customer facing. It's still that mindset. I still need to look for business professional, but you know.
Definitely. I still think about that too. There's a hand up.
Hi, it's Leslie. I think is it my hand?
Probably. Yeah, go for it,
Hi.
Leslie.
Yeah, Joel, I thoroughly agree with you because I'm not into gaming. I never have been. I feel totally ashamed to say that in a technology conference, but my background, I say this over and again, is corporate communications. That's where I kind of grew up in. But I totally agree with you were just saying, that I could see this coming together, because I would be more than happy to have a little avatar that was reacting to my reactions, instead of having to be on a camera all the time. But I really don't want to have an avatar to go into the gaming world, but I can see how it would be really nice to sometimes have a little avatar of me going into a Teams meeting. So I do think I'm really excited about this. I really am looking forward to trying it out as you know, as an MVP with you know, in the safe space in the coming months. Do we know when it might appear for testing? The mesh avatars for Teams? Have we got any idea?
The last I heard was at Ignite, they said summer 2022.
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
think
it's anywhere
first
on a
half
real roadmap.
as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm worried it'll slide, you know, which makes me a little bit more worried. I made a little comment about like Zoom. You know, it's like, yeah, the Zoom Fox thing yesterday was like dorky and made a lot of comments. People made jokes, but they actually put something out, you know, and it's like, Microsoft, come on, put something out. Like that's how I feel. I just worry that it's going to be like something that just gets pushed and pushed and pushed. You know,
I missed the first half of your session, so I don't know what has already been said, but the fact that Microsoft bought which company was it? Was the animation company? What was the name of that?
Altspace VR.
Yeah, so isn't that what that was all about, mostly, or a lot to do with it, that would help that mesh journey along?
You could say that it brings some of the avatar capabilities, but really, I do see these as kind of three distinct efforts. You have Mesh All Up, which has been focused on HoloLens and that experience of being able to actually build mixed reality experiences for your corporation, an SDK. And there's a great Microsoft Mechanics video that talks about that. I'd highly encourage anybody to go check that out. And then Mesh for Teams, which is essentially bringing in some of those capabilities of avatars, immersive, the ability to kind of set up these rooms and that kind of capability, which I believe does come from the bringing in Mesh, but it doesn't stop at HoloLens 2. You don't have to have a HoloLens 2 device. You can absolutely be using your desktop, Mac, PC, or the Oculus hardware or the Windows mixed reality hardware. So essentially the whole spectrum for how you consume that space. And the facial expressions, it's essentially using the video inside of Teams. So it's not that you have to go and buy a bunch of hardware. It'll actually integrate with what you're doing, with the hardware you already own. Then that third experience being AltSpace VR, which is already existing. It's in the consumer space. They've added the ability to add Microsoft accounts, but not necessarily your work accounts yet. That hasn't fully shipped. I think there's some preview going on behind the scenes where you can sign up to be in the preview. Your corporation can sign up to be in the preview where you can create worlds. Worlds itself is in preview. And I'm out of time here, but essentially talk to Ryan Scouten. He's actually created worlds. Even for the upcoming Microsoft 365 Virtual Summit, we're going to be using those worlds for our event, where we'll have an actual mixed reality track. Maybe it'll just be a handful of sessions. If Mesh for Teams is available, we'll use it, but otherwise we'll use AltSpace VR to be able to have these spaces where you can actually connect, and it's desktop and headset as well. So basically that spectrum. But so far it hasn't been Azure AD shipped yet. But thanks everybody for coming. I know it's a short session, and I don't know if we've got somebody right up against us, but I want to just ping our moderator for the room and see if we can go over a few minutes or not.
Yeah, sure. There's no hurry yet, so.
Okay,
Yeah, I
great.
think the next one's at 11.
No, let's not
We're
stop
top of the
here.
hour.
Cool. So anyway, thanks everybody for coming, and let's keep the conversation going if you'd like.
It seems to me like, to Leslie's point about like where does Teams, where does AltSpace go? It looks like potentially, and I don't have any inside information or anything, that like AltSpace might be the engine or the architecture that leads us to Mesh in Teams, you know? And like you said, we got to get like authentication through Azure AD. We've got to get the avatar builder. It's like to get from where AltSpace avatars are now to where we saw with the Accenture video. It's like the AltSpace avatars 2.0 or something like that might be where it's the Teams avatar builder, right? Because that kind of looks like the same design language what's on your screen right now, you know. So I'm hoping that like some of that gets ported over into Teams, and then the world building itself seems like it would be a construct within Teams, and then you've got the organizational like group management of Teams. Like when you create a world, do you assign it to an Office 365 group? Do you assign it to like what's the construct that a world fits into within a 365 tenant? That'll be kind of interesting to unfold and see like how do they build this in the context of like an information architecture, you know? Right. It does seem like these avatars do look like the ones they show off in the Mesh for Teams. So I would agree with you that it does seem like there's at least some of the development that's coming from this. In the demo where they kind of just showed immersive as kind of just a drop down inside of Teams, it is interesting, that idea of how close to this is Worlds. And since we've got a little bit of time, I can show you, here's some of the ones that I can't take any credit for this, but this is where some of the worlds that Ryan has created. But you can kind of see there's some stuff from Ignite as well as some MVP stuff. But yeah, Worlds has always been something I've wanted to like dabble in, you know, but it's kind of scared me a little bit. And I worry that might be the first version we see in Teams, is like if it's like how the custom together mode builder was, where it's like, this is a developer channel thing and it feels very developer-y. I kind of worry that, you know, is Microsoft going to get enough adoption if world building is too difficult? You know, I hope that they make it very accessible and, you know, easy for regular people to be able to do it as part of like, oh, I'm in internal comms or something like that. I think Microsoft needs to recognize maybe the type of person who will be responsible for making a world in Teams may not be a Unity developer. They may be a person in HR who's building it for a culture reason, you know?
Yeah,
And,
I would,
most of the advanced stuff is in Unity today. You're correct. They
Yeah.
haven't brought it down where it's, hey, let me change the aesthetics of a room that was built in Unity.
Mhm.
If you really want to have that full design capability, you've got to have that skill set.
Yeah, hopefully they really nail it, maybe with some templates to start out or something like that to kind of get the business to adopt it, you know, so that they don't need to rely on developers in order for their company to try it out.
And well, we've got some of that in the testing I've done. I go into a room, I can select the world, and then I can modify the features I want to enable into it.
Hmm.
So if I want people to be able to have certain controls, whether they can come on stage with me or not, or what access to other fun things can we do? Can we turn on things like shooting basketballs or launching fireworks, or control when those come on during the time period? Because if you're in the middle of a presentation, you don't want somebody launching bottle rockets at your head. And that was an experience. And that was an experience we actually had with one of my managing directors. He's like, "Okay, remind me not to turn that on so early in the session." And so those things are evolving and learning as we go, and that experience that are there. And then getting people used to it, because when you see somebody that's coming in from a PC, the controls and the experience that are there aren't as natural as somebody with a headset, because their arms are going to stay by their side, so they look like they're somewhat more robotic, like when they're walking around, versus natural motions and movement.
yeah. But you can kind of this idea of there being templates where if you're looking for a big screen for presentations, or you're looking for kind of more of a natural bar environment or a dance hall or a club or whatever, you can, maybe it's for games, you can pick these templates. But if you're really trying to more than just add your company logo to the wall, yeah, you probably aren't necessarily going to have your comms director building out the world. You're probably going to create it as a IT project, and to build things. And there were some examples of this idea of when you're in the meeting that there's going to be this little table where the objects, you can pull them from OneDrive or SharePoint and be able to kind of look and work with these objects. And I think right now it shows more of that kind of stuff happening in Mesh, but with Mesh for Teams, don't know whether that's the first release or at what point in the roadmap, but that idea of being able to pull in your documents, your 3D objects for going on the floor, that idea of being able to kind of bridge the hybrid and physical with the digital twins, that's where a lot of this investment is as well. This idea, there's the hollow portation where you get a realistic view of the user versus the avatar, which does the alt space VR. But with HoloLens, they're actually doing the mixed reality where they bring that avatar and put them in the room. So I think there's a number of different efforts, a lot of different kind of horses in this horse race around what is the Microsoft metaverse and what it's about. But when you scroll all the way to the bottom here, and this is just Microsoft.com/mesh, if you look at the very bottom here, you'll notice featured applications. You've got Mesh for Teams, Mesh app for HoloLens, and AltSpace VR. So in my head, I'm totally looking at this as there's 3 horses in the race. There's 3 kind of major investments. They're all in the this mixed reality space from that division, but working with Microsoft 365, there's a lot going on in terms of SDKs and being able to bring Microsoft 365 into these spaces. And I can imagine as well with Azure AD what they do there with AltSpace VR from an enterprise perspective. And for those who want to keep up, you can sign up for updates. And if you dive into any of these three spaces, they do have some private previews for Mesh App for HoloLens. And I as well have seen, and I don't see it now, but there was an AltSpace VR thing where you could actually sign up from an enterprise perspective to be that they would reach out to you if they felt like you were a good candidate for enterprise features for AltSpace VR as well.
I have a question there. Or just hand raise that a bit.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Oh, there is one hand raised.
Yep.
Hi.
Yeah, Catherine.
Hi, yep. I'm with Accenture, and I had a question. I've got some training that I'd like my some of my teams to go through, and it would be fun if we could build it to be used with the Oculus that Accenture's handed out to everybody. What is the kind of talent that you look for? Because I've reached out to some of the training people in-house to build it. It wouldn't be like a long training, maybe 15 minutes, just a short module. But does anyone know what kind of talent you would look for in the designer for that training in the tech part? We have the content, so it would be building it.
If you're talking straight up mixed reality, I would be looking for Unity. I think Unity is the big one.
Unity.
Actually, Catherine, this is Charles Van Heusen. I'm with Accenture, and I can introduce you to the people here that actually do that for you. So.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll reach out to you after. Thanks. And is it typical that for us, we had to create a Facebook account to work with the Oculus? Is that just because of the partnership, or is that how it would be with?
It's just the Gen 1 phase we're in with the virtual reality world. They'll eventually have single sign-on for that, where we use our corporate identities for those components that are there.
And how far out is that, the single sign-on?
Yeah, I don't know exactly on that time frame.
Okay.
But I mean, because Meta owns the Oculus, that's kind of the cost of admission, I guess we'll call it, to leverage the Oculus platform, because AltSpace itself is on an app within it. You can actually go onto the PC and download AltSpace there, and you don't have to go through quite as much of that in that configuration. But if you want to actually have it in the VR headset, you've got to pay the token to Meta first.
And basically Meta, the Oculus and Oculus 2, that there's the Vive, the Oculus, there's a bunch of different headsets, so it depends on what you've invested in from a hardware perspective. But the Oculus being a Meta thing, you use your Facebook account to log in. But if you're using a Windows headset, you wouldn't need Facebook at all.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yep. And I see Andrew's got his hand up.
Turn on. I don't know why I'm not appearing, so I'll turn my camera off. Just a quick one. I'm curious. I'm an architect and an interior designer that deals mainly in education and workspace design. So it's curious that when you guys are talking about designing these spaces, you're only talking about developers and IT teams and maybe the comms team, rather than the people who would traditionally design your offices and your schools and those internal spaces. We've been using VR for probably 4 years as a tool, and we've tried it with clients who mostly hate it because of the experience of putting the headsets on. And we looked at HoloLens. It's just too expensive for our application at the moment. It's a lot cheaper than when we looked at it, but it's interesting the fact that when we're building physical spaces, we did build the digital twin probably 12 months before the physical space is made, but we never use that digital space other than to sell the concept of the physical space. And so for the last 3 months or so, I've been trying to look at, how coming from sort of a human-centered architecture design point of view, we can start to use those digital spaces, but it's really difficult to find a way in terms of the technology and the bridges. So yeah, just curious. You guys are all a lot more techie, I guess.
Yeah, well, I like what you're saying there. And I think that there's probably going to end up being new roles in companies around this kind of thing. I think that often when something is in pilot or in preview, you end up with the geeks who kind of evolve around that, people who are growing up from the consumer side and taking their experience and bringing it into the enterprise. But I really like the idea that there's actually expertise in design and space and those kinds of things. I think that's fascinating. But those people who own the conference rooms and are in charge of the hardware related to conference rooms, who are in charge of teams, and that they end up being the geeks. They end up being the propeller head guys in IT. And I don't mean just guys and gals, obviously. The people who are responsible for keeping taking that experience of a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or a WebEx meeting and saying, no, we want to actually take this to now be a mixed reality meeting. And I think it's that tech group that's probably the most common ones who will be responsible for it in the beginning. But I love the idea that it evolves and that it actually gets real design and real consideration in an organization.
And what, just out of interest, what would it take? I mean, you obviously, as architects, you build a 3D model. We usually, use 3D Max or something like that, or we use Enscape when we're using VR. But then you build a three-dimensional digital asset, then you'd have to take it into Unity or something, would you, to then make it available in VR? Is that the worlds? So what you're talking about in Altspace, those worlds, are they're those realms are being built in Unity mainly and Unreal, is that right? I'm not quite sure.
I would say it starts with, if you're talking about the Microsoft space specifically, and you're talking about Altspace VR, and that one, you've got templates where you can start with templates that they have. If you're going to build your own from the ground up, that's where it is being more from those tools.
Okay, thank you.
I'm getting the hook. So, hey, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for participating. I really enjoyed this experience. Thanks so much.